What if you woke up today and something happened that changed the rest of your life, or altered the course of someone else's journey, even their life itself? Today on the 7 Moments, you'll be thrown into the deep end, quite literally, with a true story of such a day. This one brought together a homemade kayak paddle, a teenage boy, and a young child struggling to keep his head above water as his helpless father looked on. At the 7 Moments, we define moments as minutes that matter more, and this was definitely the case where a toddler's survival came down to seconds. And his panicked, pregnant mother on shore imagined losing one child right before giving birth to the next. Get ready to paddle along, friends, and by listening to the podcast, prepare yourself to be open, available, and ready to help someone in need. On dry land, close to home, and even perhaps today. Coming up next on the 7 Moments with me, your host, Peter Reese, your guide to making the best of the worst and the most from the good in your life. When it comes to living near water, about 70% of the world's population lives within 3 miles of the nearest water feature. That percentage jumps to 80 in temperate and cold regions. So the idea of being near someone on the water, experiencing distress or even danger, is not out of the realm of possibility. Even for the landlocked, accidents, anxiety, illness, and financial crisis are never far away. Anxiety alone gets a hold of over 40 million Americans each year. At the 7 Moments, we're out to prepare you to make the best of the worst and the most from the good in your life, and do the same for those around you, particularly when they're in distress. That often comes down to being prepared to provide assistance to those who are struggling. 2, in keeping with the water nautical theme of today's episode, be a lighthouse of hope. But that often takes more than good intentions. That's simply because critical moments, those minutes that matter more, don't often mean we're fully prepared to act. Based upon research and experience, there are 3 keys to being ready to help others in crisis. The first key is to be observant to what's happening around you. In military, security, and law enforcement settings, this is known as situational awareness. More often than not, it is being aware of what is different or changing in the surrounding environment. For example, as someone started talking more loudly or moving more quickly than others, or on the opposite side of the spectrum, have they become silent and are no longer moving? A friend that hasn't texted for the first time in weeks, a family member with no appetite, or one that can't be satisfied, a normally attentive coworker who has stopped catching their mistakes. Being observant is a good thing. It's a good thing, too, simply for the sake of your personal security. In the case of the water rescue story you're going to hear, it was seen that something on the lake was wrong, that a boat was beginning to tip over in the tall waves. Second is being ready to ask a question. Rather than assuming we know what's happening and why it's happening, asking is what first responders, suicide prevention counselors, and other professionals do to render assistance. My favorite questions start with 2 words. We'll be diving in on great questions in another episode, but for today, the 2 words. 2 words are tell me. Tell me what's happening right now. Tell me if there's something I should know about. Tell me if you're struggling with something today. I'd love to hear your favorite Tell Me questions and the stories of how they've helped you love and support family, friends, coworkers, and even total strangers. Back on the lake, it started with calling out to the father of the boy in the water. Are you in trouble? Can you hang on another minute until I get there? Do you have any life preservers? Some of these questions were designed to get information. Others, though, were more about establishing contact, building trust with the people in trouble before actually attempting to help them. The third key is patience, to react or respond with some level of calm. Much of this is a matter of A, suspending judgment about their circumstances, and B, knowing you'll have time to deal with your own emotions later. On the water, in the middle of the crisis where the young child was floating away, patience looked like paddling smoothly and in rhythm to get to the scene of the accident. Instead of either giving up in dismay, thinking, I'll never get there in time, or paddling with panic, giving up steady progress for a lot of splashing with little movement. These 3 keys, being observant, asking questions, and being patient, connect to helping others in moments of crisis. Let's see what that looks like in action as the story of a homemade kayak paddle turns into a life-altering moment on a nearly empty Midwestern lake. There's something I've carried with me for 47 years. and now 1,648 miles from where it was made, and I was born. It connects three of us, even though one, a 3-year-old at the time, only touched it for a few minutes. And me is the one it was made for, along with my father, its maker, now gone 5 years past. It was made to fit a $50 canvas and maple kayak, so heavy it needed a boat trailer to tote it, and meant my father needed to get his 14-year-old son down to the water every time he wanted to paddle. A serene blue, over 13 feet long, and tippy enough to toss out anything but the most balanced paddler. The paddle was Dad's project, measured and made the old-fashioned way, from laminated lumber, glue, carving tools, and 4 coats of waterproofing. Lots of sawdust, and a design that seemed more like a lumberjack's friend than a kayaker's featherweight companion. Hours in the shop, some cuts along the way, and then 2-bladed beauty, made for whatever was to come. He was a proud man. Lake Wenger was the frequent objective. With 321 acres of water and 4 miles of shoreline and cattails. Average depth, 9 feet. No motors allowed either. The day's wind started picking up. A distant paddle boat appeared in trouble, even after only a few paddle strokes. The rental tipped perilously to the side, under the weight of the father and the waves, with 2 children clinging to the seat, until one slid into the water, drifting rapidly away from the boat. Time stood still during the 500-yard sprint, arriving fast enough to scoop him from the waves. Another surge of adrenaline took me back north across the lake. His pregnant mother tottered to the boat, saying, my baby, you saved my baby." A few days later, the mother called my dad, thanking me and offering a reward. I could overhear from the living room as my dream of a new fiberglass kayak and lightweight paddle came to life and died as quickly. Saving your son's life is reward enough. Knowing he's safe is the most important thing, he concluded. The phone hung up. A better boat would have to wait, along with a new paddle. Moments or minutes that matter more, and what you heard is a quick attempt to capture one of them, centered on reaching out to someone in distress. The importance of being observant, asking questions, and being patient ended up turning a bad situation into a reunited family. Clearly, there are few guarantees in this life, but if we've prepared, the potential for making the best of the worst and the most from the good gets better and better. Thanks for listening, and join me, your host, Peter Reese, again soon for another episode of The 7 Moments.